Hello and welcome to the open meeting of Autistic Radio and the charity, the Autistic People Autistic Association.
We speak our words, we listen.
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 Today we have an email to think about, and it reads, "Hi Jules, I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out to you via email. I'm at university and I'm currently developing an application for young autistic children that focuses on teaching social and emotional learning skills. For example, emotion recognition and regulation. I'm looking for guidance and feedback from autistic adults who might be interested in such a project. My colleagues, and they give names, recommended that I contacted you. And I see that you have interviewed other colleagues of mine," and then giving the names, Dr. this and Dr. that. "Would this be something that you might be interested in? Or would you have a recommendation of someone I could contact, or maybe an online group I could share the details with? I have attached a flyer to this email and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have." So I've read the email. I'll open it to the group and see whether anybody has first thoughts about this.
I guess off the top of my head, we would need more information really to respond to what is being offered here.
Yeah, I agree with Rui. Sounds promising so far. The email sounds nice and pleasant and an inclusive, welcoming opportunity. But yeah, some more information on that would be appreciated.
It's a nice introduction to it, but like everybody's saying, we're not getting into the meat of it yet. So it would be interesting to follow it up and see what exactly the offering is before we make any sort of hard and fast decisions about it. But it seems like a string we could pull on just to see what's going on there.
Yeah, we had a big discussion about technology and autism yesterday, so it's relevant to that we get a wee bit more depth about what is being proposed.
Well, I'm a bit surprised by your responses, actually, because I had quite a lot of negative feelings immediately about this, and you're being extremely open and reasonable, which is going to be appreciated by the researcher. I'm going to read what I wrote. "Hi, I welcome contacts with all professionals here at Autistic Association and autisticradio.com. We have proved ourselves to be a safe space where those aligned with behavioural science can discuss autism with a mixed autistic group here through the Autistic Radio project. We are currently in various stages of 3 other co-productions with behavioural organisations and charities. The audio module that we use to enable the thoughts and knowledge of autistic people to be accessed and made available is fully formed. The model was developed independently by autistic people to enable equity in communication. We also have taken advice from members of the UK SBA and stolen some of their ideas to include in our processes. What you appear to be developing is probably a very useful resource, and I wish you well. If you were to engage us in your development process, you would receive some very frank responses and advice from members of our group. Most organisations are unwilling to use this kind of information because it can be emotionally challenging. Emotionally challenging to receive the unvarnished opinions and prejudices of the respondents to your inquiries. I think it might be best for you to make inquiries with some of your profession that have dealt with us recently. I have not sought their permission to copy them into this email, but I feel confident that they will want to help you." So I have a bit more that I wrote to them, but what do people want to respond to the way I'm writing it at the moment?
Well, I can see your point, and from what you've put, is very true. When people want our views and are asking our input is direct, it's polite, but it's very direct, and a lot of people won't like some of the directness and the honesty of it. it's quite, it can be quite emotionally challenging, especially if it seems like it's being critical. But then if you're asking someone's views, you've got to take that on board. Although you want to be as polite as possible in terms of you're not looking to offend, but you're looking to give honest answers. So I can see your point on that. And maybe that is the best way forward, willing to give a chance after getting more information on what actually the person wanted. Although I'm always sort of suspicious of a lot of these things, because it's always quite difficult when the conversations continue about how these things progress and how they measure it and what they measure as success in their terms.
Your brain is already extending this out. People have decided to contribute by text. Somebody says immediately that they felt negative, but because they're being recorded at the moment, they conform to try to appear even-handed. Somebody says here, I am always on a fence, but the more you know about it, the more you're able to make a real judgment. Another person says that I would be looking for proof that autistic people are going to be listened to. I would want more information. Another person says, I like how Jules is asserting that we have our own model, and that model has borrowings from others, and we take ownership of the whole process, let's say. And they add to that rather than kowtowing to, in inverted commas, experts. So there's a mixed feeling coming through here on the text.
I'm always a little reticent when they say something is aimed at young people or a much younger audience than ourselves, mostly because it's a really different experience for people of a younger age who have to go through this process and things. I wonder how much I can kind of give truly unbiased by my own experience reactions to stuff, or whether that I've got this inbuilt thing where I just kind of negatively reject stuff because of the way that, I've not been given too many tools with my own autism to be able to adjust with it. So it's just, what can I contribute? How can I contribute? Will it be valuable? There's lots of different factors involved here where I just kind of, I like to chew it over. And the way in there is like we said, more information. So I go with the group, but for me, it would be interesting to see what they do.
Texter says, do young autistics see us as oldies? That's an interesting point. I personally think that as an older generation that we have things to add because we can remember being young, and because of our age, we might be able to articulate things that maybe the younger group don't feel confident to articulate. So I think there is a value. I think there is a value in what these people are asking. That's asking to speak to autistic adults purposefully. So there's a thought process in the researcher's mind that is respectful there to our autistic elder status, if you like. I'll continue on. Oh, somebody's written immediately, definitely to that. I note that in your flyer, you are valuing the time of your respondents. They offer a payment to people who take part in this as individuals. We do not offer ourselves to be used as a free resource, and it is good to see that you are respecting and valuing respondents in your offering on your flyer. The model you are using is to get individual responses using your own method. Our established model is one where we engage with you as a small group. We could offer individual respondents, but my opinion is that you would be better to engage with a selection of our membership and create a co-production using our model of engagement. My expectation is that there will be quite a contrast in our responses to the responses you get from your planned method. And then I finish it off to say, conversing with your colleague could still be your best option at this stage. Please get back to me when you've had further time to consider. I will then forward your offer to the directors and trustees. My best regards, Jules.
So basically, we're kind of presenting, if you want to work with us, this is the way that we do it, rather doing it their way. And it presents a more co-production and more fair minded approach and structure, which would make it more workable than would be, if it was done totally the way they want to do it, maybe.
In the text, one person says, we would have experienced the situations that young people face. So just because we're old doesn't mean we don't have access to the experiences. Another person says that they have the tendency to get a bit angry when we discuss our younger selves. So there's an intimation there towards the trauma that various members of us in various ways carry from our youth being autistic. And yeah, we have to recognize that many of us will have thoughts and reactions that are formed by those experiences. One of our contributors points this out as a kind of tissue memory. He also says that it seems there is a research economy out there to engage with or not engage with, and points out the somatic or body is important. Another person points out that they can get a bit angry when they feel that they're not being listened to. So from my point of view, in those texts, it kind of says to me that if we were to engage with this process, we would be comfortable doing it with the audio model that we've created, but that's not the offering. The offering is to do it their way. And the offering appears to be that they have already decided what the solution is and what the problem is, and now they just want comments on the top, a kind of veneer of authenticity, perhaps, by dealing with an autistic group. So I'm unwilling to give the okay of the name of Autistic Radio or the okay of the name of Autistic Association to this process at this point in time. And I do not feel confident that the person involved will want to engage with us in the way that we want to engage. I feel that they probably got far enough along their process and they have already decided where they want to be. So my recommendation to the group is that we only stick to co-productions where we have the knowledge that our limited resources that we're willing to volunteer are going in directions where we're truly being listened to from the start.
Well put, Jules. I'm just noting what Robbie's put in the text, using autistic people to make it look like we have been consulted. Yes.
That's a fair point, what Robbie said, because this happens elsewhere with other things. The consultation is you ask people and then you can say that you've actually consulted rather than just telling people or providing information. Following on from what Robbie says is using autistic people to make it look like we've been consulted. And I've seen that done, not with autism, but, certain organisations, authorities, etc., do that approach to make it look like more inclusive than it actually is. And I totally agree with what you've said as well, Jules, about the approach that we need to do, that we prefer to do. And any other way just seems basically wasting time for everyone.
And it's sort of how willing they are to accept criticism, really, really strong criticism, or whether they're just looking for us to do a thumbs up and say this is all okay and, give it a kind of a 10 out of 10, or whether they're really wanting to go into the nuts and bolts of this, If all they're really doing is they've got a fully formed thing on the table that's all ready to go, and they're not willing to, they're looking to sort of retro edit what they're doing because of what we say. It's almost like they just want our thumbs up.
Yeah, I want to point out almost in the conclusion now that we are working on our prejudices, but our prejudices are things that people need to address. It's our prejudices that stand in the way of a communication between the professionals and ourselves often. So as a group, I would put forward the proposition that we are aware of our prejudices and that we want to try to be helpful to the people that are helpful to autistic people. And that's the route by which we can have an effect on the world. However, I have had a response to my email, And in behavioral terms, the behavior is quite clear. I write a long email. I make quite a lot of effort to explain things in our position in a long format. And my next receipt is an email that just says, "Thank you for sharing." And that's it. So from my point of view, looking at this from a behavioral point of view, I would say that email is a shutting down of the conversation. They've received what I've said and they have immediately shut the conversation down.
It doesn't even state it's an automatic response that you sometimes get from agencies. Wow, that's like using the word anyway to end a conversation.
Kind of like a whatever, really, a hand wave, isn't it?
Yeah, I've even done that myself when trying to shut down people that are trying to be problematic. It's basically saying thank you for your input, because it wakes people up. But also, yeah, it's exactly this. I've got exactly the same feelings as you have, Jules, on that response alone.
I think we've been discussing a communication process here, a relationship, because a bit of me was trying to remember the original premise of their communication. Was it they have an app or a technology? Is that correct?
They're a researcher and senior lecturer, as far as I can tell, and they want to develop an app for the autistic population, and they want advice from the adult autistic population to help them form that. That's what they're proposing. And they've been asked to get in contact with us because we have a reputation amongst some of the professionals to be a very safe space for them to talk with.
Yeah, and we engage. Yeah.
So I'm going to finish today's meeting by reading the last of the text here. Somebody says that a true autistic voice would be remarkable, and then, but would only we notice? Or are even autistic people conditioned to accepting the status quo? Are we crash test dummies? And somebody writes, that's how I feel in response, crash test dummies. And somebody just writes, wow, in response to my reading of their shutting down the conversation email. So here we are at Autistic Radio. This is one of the things that we're working on, and we have open meetings here. If you want to join in the conversation with us here at Autistic Radio, we will facilitate that. You can join a 444 every Sunday. You can drop in, listen in the background without even making yourself known to us. And when you're ready, you can come into the room and put your text out there or your voice. We'll try to make the transition from being a listener to being a contributor as gentle as possible. Thanks for listening.